Why rely on big tech for your communication when their values oppose your faith? Fide offers private, ad-free email built by and for Catholics. Most of you know Fide for email. And soon, they're launching Fide Chat, a fully end-to-end encrypted messaging app, perfect for Catholic families and groups. Sign up for fide.email today and you'll receive lifetime pricing for Fide Chat when it launches later this summer. Join Fide today. You don't have to compromise your faith for technology. And you might have noticed, humanitarianism is a massive topic in the church in our time. We often get criticized by Protestants for conflating the gospel with basically the works of mercy, the corporal works of mercy. Whereas Jesus tells us to feed the poor and all the rest, and no real Protestant's going to say no, he didn't. We get accused of having a works-based faith. We believe we can work our way to heaven, so they say. No Catholic worth his salt would agree with that. We believe that works are part of our faith. Jesus told us to do it, so we go and do it. But some take it too far. The U.S. bishops on the migration issue clearly take it too far, obviously take it too far. I'm going to turn here to our other favorite group of bishops, though, the German bishops. On their official website, they published this piece with this headline, "Churches must not slacken in their humanitarian commitment." And as a general rule, I think we can all agree that Christians of all kinds are commanded to do what the world calls humanitarian aid. Feed the poor, clothe the naked, all that stuff. We're commanded to do it. And the key word is we, meaning people, individuals. We can form groups to do it. That's where nonprofits come in, or just informal, church groups go out and do these things. We can give money to the church to do that work. I can see arguments for governments doing the work too. But what we're not commanded to do is to just have some other people do it on our behalf. Instead, we are told to do it ourselves. The gospel's pretty clear. And I want you to let me know in the comments if you think that's what they think here. If instead this sounds more like a political thing. From the German article, quote, "The imbalance is worsening. In the end, they are doubly punished, especially the poorest of the poor. More wars and violent conflicts are leading to more flight and migration, especially in the affected countries themselves. But the resources to help them are shrinking. Caritas International drew attention to the dramatic situation earlier this week when it presented its annual report. Worldwide, there's a shortfall of 60 billion euros compared to the previous year, which corresponds to a third. When need is actually increasing, aid projects worldwide have to be stopped and employees laid off. The Federal Republic of Germany has also cut funding by more than 1 billion euros. Now, given the geopolitical situation exacerbated by the dictator's war in Eastern Europe and then by President Trump's forced withdrawal from international responsibility, they're talking about USAID, it would be wise to spend more money on our own defense as decided. However, this must not lead to a lack of funds at the other end, precisely because the needs are currently increasing. Against this backdrop, it would be a mistake to attempt to shift from a policy-based, not least on Christian values, to a purely interest-driven approach. This also concerns the prospects after the crisis has hopefully been overcome and is ultimately the case. Both churches are involved here, from the political level down to the concrete assistance on the ground. They must not let up in their lobbying or their concrete commitment." And it goes on. He's commanding Protestants and Catholics to work together to fund Caritas. Okay, look. International aid is important for some things. There are people suffering in the developing world and in other places where natural disasters and other things happen. No one disputes that, and they need help. But it's curious, isn't it? Caritas got a lot of money from the U.S. government, either directly or indirectly. And there are bishops now reporting on the crunch caused by the U.S. government not giving money anymore. But I have to ask, why is it the U.S. government, meaning the U.S. taxpayer, and taxpayers who have yet to be born, their responsibility to pay for this stuff? The U.S. government is right now like $38 trillion in debt, something like that, some gigantic, ridiculous number. It's an amount of money that none of us in our lifetime will ever see paid off. And we continue to spend at rates that are utterly irresponsible. Our first duty as people is, of course, to our churches and our families and things. But when it comes to the ordering of our priorities, we have a duty more to our own country than to other places. And that becomes more clear when you realize that at some point, the national debt, payments to maintain the national debt, are going to exceed tax revenue. Economists have warned that that day is coming. And the way it works, for those who don't know, is the US government is required by law to pay the interest as it accrues on the debt, so that the debt doesn't just pile up on just endless interest. That money that you see, that number that you see, that's the national debt, is purely principal, because the US government pays the interest as it accrues. Thanks the Lord for that. Otherwise, the national debt would be orders of magnitude higher. And just maintaining the interest as it's paid gets more expensive every year. Just paying on that interest payment. And at some point, disaster will come. That's not to even mention the inflationary effects of having that much debt. We can't afford this stuff anymore. And nobody wants to have the real conversation about that. Instead, we're told to do humanitarian things. And the church in Germany gives us another example of what humanitarian things they have in mind, because humanitarianism also involves equality. And so you get stories like this that they put in front of eyes to celebrate. Headline: Nun, formerly a parish priest. No, she wasn't. This woman here, nice old lady, was never a parish priest. But they give you a provocative headline like this. Again, I didn't come up with this headline. This is the German bishops on their official news website. Nun, formerly a parish priest. Now, what do you think the purpose of that is? The Germans have been pushing for the ordination of women. They want ordained deaconettes. That's what they want. Deaconettes, which have no historical connection to deaconesses, because deaconesses were just the assistants of a bishop who handled things that a male should not handle in those times, before we came up with mechanisms to assist women in ways that didn't put a bishop or a priest in danger of violating the custody of their eyes or their own oaths and the rest of it. This one was never a priest, but there's a very real reason they tell you the story. From the article, quote, Maria Jose Arana is 82 years old and has been a member of the Sacred Heart of Jesus Order in Spain for many years. She has written a book in which women who feel called to be deacons or priests have their say. In an interview with Catholic.de, the theologian talks about the book and explains how she came to be appointed as the pastor of a Spanish parish. This is the German website, the official website for the news and the church in Germany, published by the German Episcopal Conference. Any story they publish there is written in a way that is the official line of the German bishops. They endorse every single thing that is said there. This is what they want. All of these things are connected. All of them. And we should never lose sight of their propaganda. It's permeating the church everywhere now, of migration connected directly to these heresies on who can and can't be priests. It's all just absurd. If you want to know what the book is about, here's what she says. In the book, we introduce 21 women from Spain who share their calling to become deacons or priests in the church. The book was published in a recently published German translation by Christina Gauer, who is active in the Women's Diaconate Network in Germany. With our book, we want to make it clear that the calling of women to become priests is real and a worldwide desire. She says she felt this even as a child. At my first Holy Communion in 1950 in Bilbao, I experienced a special closeness to Jesus. During the Eucharist, I felt that I wanted to belong entirely to Jesus. Later, I went to the Sacred Heart boarding school in San Sebastian, which was run by nuns. At that time, I saw a film about missionary nuns that inspired me. That's exactly how I wanted to live. But my parents told me I should decide that when I was an adult. So I never told anyone about my desire to become a nun and a priest. It is completely rational. It's completely real that you, when you validly receive our Lord in the Eucharist, that you feel a special connection to him. But to mistake that for some special calling, that's a profound error. She has no calling to be a priest, any more than I have a calling to be the Queen of England. It's not possible. Those 21 women in her book don't have a calling to be a priest. They don't. It's easy to say. They just won't accept it. The church has been consistent on this since the beginning. They don't have a calling. It's metaphysically impossible. And the German bishops endorse it. It's weird. I got a little pushback recently when I had a letter from Archbishop Vigano. Wasn't he excommunicated? His excommunication was invalid. I mean, on its face, it was. It was an act of persecution. But you know who has excommunicated themselves already, de facto? It's the German bishops. They deny dogmas of the faith publicly. They say the church got it wrong on moral issues. Some of them even said that the Bible is wrong on certain moral issues. And yet they don't get excommunicated. Instead, they amplify nuns like that who just say the most absurd things. They're saying, as a teenager, you wanted to become a priestess. Well, I'm glad they're using that word. And wrote in the book that you would have preferred to be a boy. When I was 13 or 14, I wanted to become a priest. Bothered me that this profession in the church wasn't possible for me because I was a girl. At the time, I didn't think it would be better if I were a boy. I thought more, the church should change its laws and allow me to be ordained one day. This injustice, the spotless bride of Christ, ladies and gentlemen, is guilty of injustice on matters related to theology, according to her. Hurt me because I wanted to follow God's call. I wanted. And that is the phrase you will hear always in these stories. I wanted. I'll tell you what I want. I want a Catholic Church that does what the Catholic Church has always done until very recently. Uphold the moral laws, tell the world when it's wrong on morality, correct the errors among laity when it comes to theology, and work tirelessly, first and foremost, for the salvation of souls. And from everything else flows. But instead, we get this false gospel of humanitarianism. It's at the heart of everything we see from Rome right now, and of the voices they silence and the voices they amplify or tolerate. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments, please. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. Sharing this on social media helps too. Do you see how all this is connected? If so, let me know. As always, pray for the church. And for everybody I spoke about here, I'm not trying to rally you up against that nun. She does a fantastic job of that on her own. Please pray for her. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.